Hello everyone and welcome back to Whisky Wednesday. I am back off holiday. The idea was to actually film something while I was away in the beautiful Yorkshire Dales in Bronte country, but it was just really wet and quite windy, so unfortunately I don't even have any footage to show you because I just kind of got occupied with other things. But we are here today to talk about this. Now, I've been lucky. Oh, not there. There. I've been lucky enough to win one of these via a ballot from Berry Brothers. It cost £100 plus £10 shipping. The 2010 summer batch release of Daftmill, 46% natural colour, unchill filtered. It is a batching of 25 first fill bourbon casks, which is right up my street. It isn't a single cask Daftmill. It isn't a heavily sherry Daftmill. Those tend to go for quite a lot on secondary market. I think this one's already going for 150, but I was lucky enough to win it, so I opened it and thought, you know, why not? Saying that it isn't a single barrel and saying that it isn't sherried doesn't mean that it isn't something which is in demand. It's kind of like saying all Ferraris aren't fast. It's like, they are, it's just some are faster than others. This will probably keep selling for about £150-ish. It might dip a little bit. But the important thing is that of the... There was a number of how many of these things were released. Oh, it's on the front. My bad. 6,250 bottles. Well, 6,249 now, because I've got this one open. It's a great distillery. I've had the privilege of trying one a couple of years ago. It was the W Club bottling for the company I work for, the whisky shop. I have a sample of that here somewhere. There it is. That's the our one. That'll catch the light. I don't think it will though. There we go. Ish. But yeah, this is only the second Daftmill I've ever tried. Let's dig in. Let's stop talking about secondary markets and all that kind of stuff. It's just boring, isn't it? But yeah, colour-wise, it is this beautiful golden colour. Really eye-catching, classic whisky colour. And what we've come to know, Daftmill, and indeed lowland whiskies, they've always got this beautiful golden hue to them. Not too heavily sherried. They certainly don't smell peaty most of the time. But let's smell, let's taste. Oh. I forget when I won this a month ago-ish. I think it's technically an 11-year-old whiskey. I can't remember when it was bottled. It was distilled July 2010. It just says bottled 2021, so it doesn't actually say how old it is. But let's go with 11, because it would make sense. The nose on that is incredible. It's just this huge hit of like lemon and bergamot. Very clean, very cleansing. Classic lowland, very fresh, very alive. There's a really nice kind of oat, like oaty biscuity thing. It almost steps into like a kind of ginger nut treacle flavour profile. Loads of jellies, like lemon and lime jelly. It's very again, fresh, zingy, very refreshing, very clean. Very kind of perfect estimation of the colour, to be fair. You know, what this looks like is kind of what it smells like. There's a nice lily thing in there. And a word that I've never used before to describe the lowlands, but it's kind of waxy. It has almost like a Klein Leachy thing. Like candle wax. And then that in conjunction with like lemon. And that slight bergamoty, gingery thing. There's also one of that classic shifting lowland elements to it, which is almost kind of farmyardy. Now obviously Daftmill is a farm as well as a distillery, but it has this kind of like hay, very soft like bale of hay smell to it. It's kind of morphing into just like grass and sort of well-trodden grass. There's your pretentious tasting note of the week. Well-trodden grass. But at the same time, it's like walking through a meadow, which is just... Apologies, there's something in my eye. It's like walking through a meadow of just the freshest flowers. It's just so alive and clean, without being peated or cash strength or being one of these whiskies which has to be not an extreme, but just something that's like quite powerful in order to draw you in. This is delicate, it's balanced. It would be interesting to try this next to things like Rosebank and St. Magdalene. I think that would be quite a turn up for the books. Only tried one St. Magdalene, tried a few Rosebanks in the past and wasn't ever really impressed with them. The St. Magdalene I loved. This I really like. This bottle will be drank, and shared with friends for sure. But citrusy jellies, fresh flowers, waxy candle wax, ginger, bergamot, springtime. Weirdly enough, where I was just staying with my partner in Yorkshire, it was surrounded by, sheep and farms and fields and lovely kind of quaint Britishness. And every time we walked past fields, it had like elements of the smell to it. Just like fresh flowers. We're just kind of hitting spring now, and like you start to see daffodils bloom and bluebells and things like that. And there's just something in there which is quite reminiscent of it. Taste. That's the first whiskey I've had in about 9 days, and I can tell my palate's kind of having to readjust to 46%. So initially the lemon thing and the lime, that really sort of sharp driven citrus, that arrived straight away. Earlier on when smelling it I mentioned like oat and like oat biscuits. Kind of think of that as almost like a maltiness too. It's got this beautiful chewy texture. I'm going to ignore the heat from the alcohol just because I've not drunk whiskey for a while. But yeah, loads of driven citrus. It's chewy, it's thick, it's quite creamy. Not super creamy, but it's got like an element of creaminess to it. Gets a little greener on the taste. For some reason it's reminded me quite a lot of mint and basil. Really gets into your sinuses. The finish is really interesting. So the finish, it moves away from sweet and citrus and honestly, it does taste a bit like Clyne Leash 14. This particular one, it's got a Clyne Leashy thing about it. It's actually gone quite cloudy. I don't know if you can pick up. My room's quite cold, or the office is quite cold. It's gone to slightly cloudy as it's just been set. Yeah, there is that kind of herbal, almost like aniseed note in the finish. And then with the waxiness and the lemoniness, it's quite Clyne Leashy. Overall, I'm going to give it like a solid 8. It's very nice whiskey. It's very, very good lowland whiskey. And the lowlands is exploding and becoming very interesting again. Thank God. But if that was on a shelf for £100, say if the demand wasn't there and it was £100, I wouldn't buy it because I wouldn't say it's a £100 bottle of whiskey. Due to the demand, and having to pay £100 in order to get one, I still wouldn't say that it's a £100 bottle of whiskey. I would pay tops for that, maybe 65, 60 in that area. Smaller distillery, literally a farmyard, only produces like, 100 casks a year, or they only age 100 casks a year. So not a lot of whiskey. So yeah, 60, 65 for sure. It gets a solid 8 because the nose is beautiful, the taste is quite transformative, it takes you to different places, which you may not expect a lowland whiskey to do, and then the finish is very Clynelish-like. Unfortunately, you can get something which tastes like Clynelish 14. You can get Clynelish 14 for about, I think still £50, £55 a bottle, which is roughly half of the price I paid for this. And it's not as in demand, and it's still very good. So it's lovely whiskey, and if you are able to get one, open it, drink it. I would be really intrigued to see what batches of this taste like side by side. Yeah, not as expressive as the single cask we got to try last year, or even the year before now, I think it was 2 years ago. That one was really intense and really all over the place, but this is beautiful. But there are whiskies which do the same thing for less money. The reason this is £100 isn't Daftmill's fault, in the same way that, who was I saying this about the other day? In the same way that you can't really get hold of like any Springbank releases or Long Row and things like that. It's not the distillery's fault. It's people who are buying it and just throwing it onto auction and stuff like that. They're the reason we can't get these whiskies and open them and enjoy them. So yeah, it tastes really nice, and if the crazy demand wasn't there, I'd happily pay 60 quid, but it's not. It's £40 more, 40% more. So yeah, it gets a solid 8 from me. It's really good. There's nothing wrong with it. It's just, I don't think I would pay that price if it wasn't a ballot system. So that's the way I said it. Thank you all for watching. We will be back filming properly next week, hopefully with some special guests. Keep an eye out. Thank you all for watching again. This was the Daftmill Summer Batch 2010, and I will see you all next week. Cheers.